Grange was built around the year 3200 BC, centuries older than Great Pyramid in Egypt.
They're older than the pyramids, yet almost no one has heard of them. Hidden for thousands of years beneath forests and farmland, archaeologists have just uncovered massive trapezoidal tombs. Constructed with such precision, they're rewriting the timeline of civilization itself.
Almost everything they teach us about the ancient history is wrong.
These aren't scattered ruins. They're part of a vast, forgotten blueprint. From the Czech Republic's mysterious circular enclosures to Ireland's megalithic monuments, clues are emerging of an ancient European culture far more advanced than history ever taught us. So, who built these colossal structures? What purpose did they serve? And most chilling of all, how did we forget they ever existed? The forgotten pyramids of Europe. Buried beneath layers of forest soil and centuries of silence, archaeologists in Poland have uncovered something astonishing. Massive ancient tombs so old they predate even the Egyptian pyramids. Nicknamed the Polish Pyramids, these trapezoidal burial sites were found in the General Desideri Człapowski Landscape Park, a serene nature reserve that now holds the key to a long-forgotten chapter of human history. The tombs stretch across the landscape like sleeping giants. Some of them are nearly 200 meters long and stand 4 meters tall. Their sheer scale is only the beginning of what makes them extraordinary. What truly sets these structures apart is their age, around 5,500 years old. That means they were built roughly 1,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza ever touched the desert sky. But how did they find them? It all started with a team from Adam Mickiewicz University, one of Poland's most respected research institutions. Using aerial laser scanning, the archaeologists spotted unusual patterns hidden beneath the trees, long, narrow embankments that didn't quite fit the natural landscape. Targeted field excavations followed, and that's when they realized they were looking at something far older and far more significant than anyone had expected. These tombs weren't ordinary graves. They were the final resting places of important individuals in Neolithic society, possibly leaders, shamans, or religious figures. Their trapezoidal shapes, broader and taller at the eastern ends, reflect a sophisticated sense of design. In fact, this unusual layout may have been inspired by the architecture of the houses these people lived in. Each tomb was a monument built to honor someone who mattered. And what's even more chilling is that many of these tombs likely held just one person, one individual, inside a stone-lined chamber, buried upright or laid carefully on their back with their legs pointed east, surrounded by weapons, pottery, jewelry, and offerings. Carefully placed objects that meant something, items that told a story about the world they came from and the life they left behind. You'd think a structure this huge would be built for many, but instead, the message it sends is crystal clear. This person mattered so much, the entire community came together to build a mountain over them. The people responsible for these tombs belonged to the funnel-beaker culture, a Neolithic society spread across parts of Europe. Known for their farming, pottery, and monumental burial practices, the funnel-beaker people were not only working with dirt and stones, they were also creating legacies. What's even more impressive is the way these tombs were built. The stones used to shape the structures weighed up to 10 tons, and they were carried without any machines or wheels. Just muscle, rope, determination, and knowledge passed down through generations. And it wasn't random. These tombs were aligned with the cardinal directions, showing an understanding of astronomy and ritual that modern archaeologists are still trying to fully grasp. So far, no human remains have been discovered inside the excavated tombs. But the archaeologists believe they're close. They're hoping to find stone tools, clay vessels, and other objects that could tell us even more about these ancient people's beliefs, customs, and way of life. And if they do find human bones preserved in the soil, it could offer groundbreaking insight into who these leaders were and how they were honored. Artur Golis, a researcher involved in the project, explained that each generation likely built its own megalith, layering stone over legacy, burial over belief. Some of the pottery discovered even suggests ritual use of substances like opium, a haunting reminder that these early societies may have explored altered states as part of their spiritual practices. And while many megalithic tombs across Europe have been lost to erosion or development, these ones were hidden in the forest for millennia, untouched, undisturbed, and waiting to be found. In a quiet corner of Poland, ancient voices are beginning to speak again. And what they're saying might just reshape everything we thought we knew about the beginnings of human civilization. And just beyond those ancient stones lies the story of the people who built them, the mysterious funnel beaker culture. Who were the funnel beaker people? Long before the mighty pyramids of Egypt or the towering temples of Mesopotamia, there was a quieter revolution unfolding across northern Europe. In the forests, plains, and river valleys from Germany to Poland, an early farming society was slowly changing the way humans lived. They didn't build empires or write on stone tablets, but they left behind something else: monuments, tools, and beakers. And those beakers have helped archaeologists piece together the story of a forgotten civilization, the funnel beaker culture. The name comes from their signature pottery, handleless vessels that widen at the top like funnels. Simple, yes, but the design is so distinctive, so widespread, that it became the cultural fingerprint for these early farmers. Wherever archaeologists find these beakers, decorated with incised lines, stamped patterns, or little imprints, they know the funnel beaker people once lived there. But pottery is just the beginning. These people were the first farmers in much of northern Europe and Scandinavia. Between 4100 and 2800 BCE, they transformed vast regions from wild woodlands into settled communities. They cultivated wheat, barley, legumes, and poppies. They raised cattle, sheep, goats, and pigs. They lived in small, sturdy houses made from wooden poles and daub, mud mixed with straw and dung. It wasn't glamorous, but it was enough to build a life. And slowly, village by village, they created a world that had never existed before. What made them truly revolutionary wasn't just the crops they planted or the animals they raised. It was how they lived. They were no longer roaming in search of food. They were staying in one place, building homes, digging ditches, marking land. They formed communities, complex ones, with signs of hierarchy and spiritual beliefs. The dead were buried in monumental tombs, reused over generations, filled with offerings like pottery, stone axes, beads, and food. These were more than just graves. They were places of memory, shrines to those who came before. And somewhere in the middle of all this, something remarkable happened. They invented the wheel. At a site called Flintbeck in northern Germany, archaeologists found the tracks of a wheeled cart preserved beneath a burial mound. These ruts, dated to around 3600 BCE, are among the oldest evidence of wheel use in the world. They lead straight into a dolmen, a tomb constructed with massive stones, suggesting that the wheel wasn't just for farming or transport. It played a role in their rituals too. The funnel beaker people also left behind traces of a wide-ranging trade network. They exchanged flint tools, amber jewelry, and other items with communities far beyond their borders. That's how poppy plants, originally from the Mediterranean, made their way into northern Europe. It's how ideas and styles, like their signature pottery, spread like a cultural meme, shared between distant villages that probably spoke similar languages and followed shared traditions. Their diet was a mix of farmed goods and foraged plants. They grew emmer wheat and naked barley, but they also ate hazelnuts, crab apples, wild berries, and chestnuts. They were grounded in the land around them, but always adapting, always experimenting. As their communities grew, they began to reshape the landscape. Forests were cleared, pastures expanded. Cattle became a kind of walking food bank, living resources that could provide milk and meat through harsh winters. Farming brought stability, but it also required planning, cooperation, and protection. That's when their society began to change. Social roles became more defined. Some people had access to more goods, better tools, and grander burials. Rituals grew more elaborate, and yet, despite their growing complexity, there's so much we still don't know. The funnel beaker people didn't write anything down. They left no books or scrolls. Their language is lost to time. But what they did leave, their monuments, their beakers, their bones, speaks volumes. In Prague, under the Vyšehrad Castle, archaeologists found signs of their presence. That means the city has been inhabited since at least the 4th millennium BCE. And the traces don't stop there. From Sweden to Poland, from Denmark to the Netherlands, their fingerprints are everywhere. And it's those very fingerprints left in tombs, circles, and stones that are now rewriting everything we thought we knew about Europe's ancient past. How the Polish tombs rewrite the European history. We've been taught for years that the dawn of civilization happened in a few chosen places: Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley. These were the lands where writing appeared, temples rose, and stone monuments were carved for gods and kings. But if you take a closer look at Europe, that story starts to fall apart. It turns out, long before the pyramids were even a blueprint, people in Central and Western Europe were already building enormous structures. Carefully planned, deeply symbolic, and shockingly advanced for their time. And two of the best examples, besides Polish pyramids, are found in the Czech Republic and Ireland. Let's start with the Czech roundels. These are massive circular enclosures, made up of wide, ring-like ditches cut deep into the ground. Some stretch nearly 240 meters across. They were built between 4900 and 46 BC, making them at least 1,000 years older than Stonehenge and the pyramids of Giza. Until recently, most people had no idea they even existed. They don't look dramatic from the ground, especially after thousands of years of erosion. But when archaeologists started using aerial photography and drones in the 1980s, these giant circles suddenly began appearing all over Central Europe. Over 200 have been found so far, including more than 50 in the Czech Republic alone. What makes them so mysterious is that no one knows exactly what they were for. They weren't homes. They weren't defensive forts. The most likely explanation is that they were gathering places used for rituals, seasonal ceremonies, or even astronomical observations. Some are aligned with sunrises and sunsets on solstices. Others show signs of having been replastered and maintained over generations. These weren't casual projects. They required enormous effort, planning, and community coordination. And then, just like that, they vanished. For a few centuries, these roundels popped up everywhere. Then, around 4600 BC, they stopped being built. Something changed, but no one knows what. It's one of the strangest gaps in European prehistory. Now, these circles, quietly etched into the European soil, aren't isolated cases. If you travel west all the way to Ireland, you'll find another example of early European monument building that defies everything we thought we knew: Newgrange. Built around 3200 BC, Newgrange is a massive stone passage tomb, older than both the pyramids and Stonehenge. But what sets it apart is what happens on the winter solstice. For just a few minutes at sunrise, sunlight pierces a narrow passageway and floods the inner chamber. That level of astronomical precision isn't accidental. It's architecture guided by spiritual belief, a deep connection to the cycles of the earth and sky. The stones used to build Newgrange weren't just local. Some were hauled from regions far away, requiring tremendous human effort. And yet the people who built it lived in simple huts. They had no written language, no centralized government. Still, they organized and labored to build something that would outlive them, and even outlast memory. That tells us something powerful. They weren't building for status. They were building for meaning. So when we look at Europe's Neolithic past through the lens of sites like Newgrange and the Czech roundels, a new picture starts to form. One where civilization didn't just blossom in river valleys under kings and scribes. It also thrived in forests and fields, where farming communities carved their beliefs into earth and stone. They didn't leave behind scrolls or golden statues. They left the sky-aligned circles, stone chambers, and buried footprints of a different kind of brilliance. A brilliance that waited quietly beneath the soil, until now. Europe's oldest monuments are finally getting the attention they deserve, and they're changing how we understand ancient history. If these structures could survive thousands of years, their stories deserve to be heard. What other forgotten chapters of history do you think are still buried underground? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.